And so to that end, I would love to introduce our keynote speaker for dinner this evening, Mr. Jonathan Mildenhall, who's the Chief Marketing Officer of Airbnb. I've had the pleasure of enjoying dinner with Jonathan this evening. He is absolutely phenomenal. You're going to enjoy listening to him tonight. I think just a few words about who he is and where he comes from. He's really a tremendous background. You know, Jonathan started his career as a graduate trainee in 1990 at McCann-Erickson, which was an agency that he'll be forever grateful to as kind of taking a wild card bet on him. And over the next 15 years, he rode rapidly through the ranks of the London ad industry, working at some of the world's most respected, creatively driven agencies, including BBH, Lowe Howard Spink, Howell Henry, TBWA, and Mother. And during that time, he also worked on some of the world's most compelling brands in existence. I mean, these included Audi, Smirnoff, Alfred Dunhill, General Motors, Guinness, PlayStation. And then in 2005, he spent the summer at Harvard Business School in the Advanced Management program and really looked at that experience as something that would forever change his professional trajectory. From there, in 2006, he joined Coca-Cola as VP of Global Advertising Strategy and Creative, and in 2007, led the introduction of Coca-Cola's global marketing platform, Open Happiness, which was an initiative that helped contribute to the company's most profitable growth in 20 years, helping increase Coke's share price from $29 to $81. And furthermore, the Open Happiness platform went on to become Coke's most awarded marketing platform in history and helped snare the prestigious accolade of 2013's Creative Marketer of the Year at the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity, which was obviously a career highlight for Jonathan. Then in 2014, Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, called Jonathan and asked him to dinner. And a 1-hour dinner turned into 2 hours, then 3 hours. And at that point, Jonathan was sold on Brian's vision to propel Airbnb to be the world's first community-driven super brand. Jonathan joined Airbnb in June and says he has never worked harder, never worked smarter, never felt more creative in his life. And he says, Airbnb has literally taken 20 years off of me. I feel as energized and excited about the work that I do as I did in my late 20s. My job is to create the most preeminent 21st century super brand marketing organization. I have no idea how I will do it, but that's really the best part about it. We get to invent a whole new playbook. And so with that, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Jonathan. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. I can't tell you how chuffed I am to be here. It was a real honor when I first got the email from Matt and then had the telephone conversation with he and his team to really understand the importance of this community and the work that you all do to take our community into the mainstream as far as the work environment's concerned. The title of this presentation is Your True Self Matters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through a very brief history on me and to a certain extent what my true self is. And then I'm going to show you how I actually applied my beliefs about humanity and creativity to the work that I did at the Coca-Cola Company. And I'm going to take you through the single proudest moment of my career at the Coca-Cola Company, when I'm going to share with you what we did for the US Super Bowl, the world's biggest televised sporting platform. So as a little introduction to me, this is a rather weird image because this is a 6-year-old Jonathan whose photograph became part of an art project of a photographer in London. And he actually took a picture of the 40-year-old Jonathan and then spliced these two things together. This became quite a high-profile art collection in London. And now I regret to say that I can't actually afford to buy my piece. Somebody else owns my piece because it's too expensive for me to buy. But the reason why I have this as an ongoing part of my conversation when I talk to people about the importance of true self is because clearly my job is about creativity and the strategic approach of creativity to strengthen an organization's growth. And so because of that, I'm always very, very conscious of allowing my 6-year-old Jonathan to actually be present in a lot of the decisions that I make. Creativity is about optimism, and it's about wonder, and it's about happiness, and it's about not necessarily knowing better. And yet at the same time, now as a 47-year-old executive, I have to bring an awful lot of business experience and personal experience to bear with every decision that I make. And so for me, it's always a question of that innocent, optimistic 6-year-old that believes in the best in people at all times, and the experienced businessman. And if I can bring both of these two parts of Jonathan together in the workplace, then the decisions that I'm going to make are going to be better for all of my team and ultimately for all of the shareholders. Now, when I started in the industry, I was in the closet. I was working at McCann-Erickson, and I was the first ethnic minority to be taken on by a top 10 London agency. And I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge, which was really where most of the graduates in the advertising industry went. I actually went to Manchester Polytechnic, which is now Manchester Metropolitan University. And so when I applied, I had the audacity to apply, and I made sure that I was the most researched, the most informed, and the most creative of all candidates, but I didn't think that I would get the job. And McCann ultimately offered me the job, and they said, we are taking a risk. You are not the demographic profile of top graduates in the London advertising industry, but there's something about you that we think might just work out. So I was in debt to McCann because they'd taken me on despite the color of my skin and despite where I was educated. They still placed that bet. And I didn't think that I could ask them to bet again on my sexuality. So I spent 3 years working at McCann in the closet. And it was the most, as you can imagine, well, you can't imagine that I was good at my job, but I was really good at my job. But every Monday morning, I used to lie about what I'd done the weekend before. I was a young gay guy in my 20s in London, spending every weekend in a club with my top off, dancing on a podium. And it's true. True to form. And every Monday, I would talk about how I spent the weekend, shopping for garden equipment with my girlfriend. I actually even made up the name of my girlfriend. My girlfriend was called Danielle, which actually got really, really difficult when Danielle and I were actually invited to a wedding. And it was the wedding of my secretary, so how could I say no? So I asked one of my girlfriends, my platonic girlfriends, to come to this wedding and play the role of my girlfriend. It was actually at that wedding that I realized that I had to leave McCann. This was the company that took a bet on me, but I didn't have the bravery to come out. But I would leave and I would go to another agency, and if anybody asked about my sexuality, then I would tell them that I was gay. So I left my first home of my career because I couldn't deal with my sexuality. And I went to a new place and I came out. And throughout that process, I made a commitment to myself that I would never, ever be in the closet about any aspect of my life again. And not only would I not be in the closet about any aspect of my life, but I would actually bring all aspects of my life into my work, because there was nothing for me to be ashamed of. And in fact, all aspects of my life, if I could have people understand how normal they were, then perhaps I could make a bigger difference in the world through the work that I did. Little did I expect at that time that the Super Bowl would be the canvas upon which I would actually genuinely put all aspects of my life into popular culture in America. And that's because as I took responsibility for Coca-Cola North America from a marketing perspective, I realized that actually Coke, as one of America's biggest brands, in more communities than any other brand, actually needed to actually show America how diverse and how beautiful, but how different the changing face of the American family is today than it's ever been. And so we chose the Super Bowl to actually put out into pop culture arguably the bravest message in Coca-Cola's history. It was at that time this year in America's Super Bowl that we decided to actually declare how beautiful America is. And what makes America so beautiful is the diversity of the American family. I'm going to play a 60-second spot, and then I'm going to just talk a little bit about the outrage that this spot caused.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, por tus olas de granos d'amber, yo piscina zakuti, sa ibabaw ng mga prutas. America, America, God shed His grace on thee. Orba hijre ke saath aaj tera cha, de la mer brilla. Berat tu verrière tirotard, from sea to shining sea.
It's a really, really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That beautiful piece of film almost cost my resignation. It was so challenging navigating that very, very simple piece of film through the system of Coca-Cola. And it's not that Coca-Cola was at fault. Coca-Cola is a complex business. It has big retail partners, it has big bottling partners, and Coca-Cola is part of the mainstream. And so when you're trying to take a mainstream brand and position it at the cutting edge of mainstream, it gets very, very difficult. And a lot of marketing organizations would like to err on the side of conservative safety than actually provocative risk. And it was really, really difficult. It actually took an awful lot out on me and my team as we kind of tried to protect this beautiful, simple, and authentic film about life in America. Now, the conservative parts of the Coca-Cola Company were right, because look at the controversy that this ad caused. It was Coca-Cola's most talked about spot in its history. It's its most viewed spot in its history. It provoked national debate. We were on every single news station, in every single media outlet. 9% of the American people threatened to stop using Coca-Cola Company products. 91% endorsed everything that Coke had done. And it was incredibly, incredibly provocative. I love what Stephen Colbert said, because he actually shone the light on the ridiculous debate that commercial was actually having within America. And what we had to do is we had to go back to the American people and actually show the real authentic stories of the people that were actually shown in this spot. And so the day after airing, we put this out on air.
I am an American.
I am an American.
I'm a Filipino American.
I'm Native American.
I'm an American.
I'm an American.
I'm an American.
I'm a first-generation American.
I'm French American. I am a Palestinian American.
I am an American.
I am Puerto Rican and American.
I'm American.
I am an Arab American.
I'm an Israeli American.
I am an American.
And I love America.
What I love about America is it's my home. I was born and raised here.
The country is gorgeous, and the national parks, and driving around is amazing.
We have a real good mixture of people in this country.
Every race, every ethnicity, every culture, every religion.
Different people coming from all over the world, sharing their food, sharing their languages.
It's the world in one country.
Whether you have a lot of money or whether you have a little bit of money.
If you're willing to study, work hard,
You can follow whatever your dreams are.
it's a lot of freedom, you know? You can do a lot of stuff.
Where there's people, nature, creation, I can love that.
It doesn't really matter what cultural group you come from, you're given a voice.
So here is the first place that we should learn how to unite, how to live together.
I think we all have seen prejudice, you know, at one time or another.
It's really hard to believe that that even still exists.
You know, somebody had called me, those foreigners. And I just thought that was funny because actually they were the foreigners.
And I remember sitting in the cafeteria one day and I looked around and I was the only one with brown skin and black hair and I stood out.
It was really hard for Danette's family to accept a white guy.
It's been very hard for my family when it comes to the gay issue, and it's been what caused us so much pain over all these years.
In middle school, as an Arab American, I used to be very afraid to tell them where I'm from.
It's really hard to hear your sister go through something like that.
You don't need anybody else to tell you, oh, this is how you have to be, or stay in this box, and let them pull you down.
You know who you are, and you should embrace who you are.
And I still have faith that people can grow and learn.
Today, I see, people asking us to hold hands, people embracing us as a family and respecting us.
I feel lucky, very proud I can have what I have right now, with my family. I work very hard like everybody else and try to have my own business, and I got it.
As a first-generation college student, it's one of the biggest accomplishments in my life. I'm so happy. And I get to come here and I get to dance, and it's so emotional for me.
We don't get to pick and choose whether America should be diverse or not. It is diverse.
I love that we were able to show America that we can be represented in a different light. It's a beautiful thing.
When you fall in love with someone who is different than you are, there's this incredible potential. I feel like we kind of form a bridge between our two families that would never have existed otherwise.
I've never felt like I was a brown person in the group of white people, which was incredible. So thankful for that.
We are diverse. And instead of judging or being afraid or, making fun of all the different types of diversities and creating these stereotypes, we need to wash all that away and we need to celebrate all the different diversities.
I'm hoping through commercials and things like that, that just the little snippets of 60 seconds in someone's day can add a question to their mind, like, well, why do I act like that? Or why do I feel this way?
Coke is spreading this message of being culturally connected.
Now you get to help other people make something positive out of it.
We could have one thing in common, and it could be that we like Coke.
I'm just proud to be a part of it.
I like to treat people like I like to be treated, and I like to be treated good, and I want to treat people right.
Yo me siento feliz en América. Gracias.
So, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you guys. That feels good. Thank you. I appreciate it. So what does that work tell you about me and how I have been successful throughout my career? Because I have, since I left McCann-Erickson, been totally open about all aspects of my life. And the first and most important thing, because I think you see this in the work that I've just shown you, that human authenticity is actually one of the biggest premiums that any of us can bring to the workplace. And human authenticity and individual authenticity is an increasing premium as all organizations are looking for greater creativity. I genuinely encourage all of my team to genuinely bring their full self, no matter what that is, into work. And I always say to my team, the interesting person who was listening to interesting music driving to work in the morning, where do they go by the time you get to your desk? And I want you to remember whoever you are at home and whoever you are when you're on your own, bring that into the workplace, because that will create a much more dynamic and creative environment. But I also encourage all of my team to put their full self into the work that they do. Coca-Cola would not have produced that second film had I have not been responsible for the company's creative agenda at the time. I personally believed in telling the human stories behind the commercial so that America and the world would understand that these were real people. This was not a manufactured Coke commercial. We found real families. And I put my true personal beliefs into the work, and my fingerprints are on that work. And I'm very proud that I did that. I genuinely believe in two values. I believe in humanity, and I try and be the best person possible at all times. And I believe in creativity, and I try and be the best creative person, regardless of my sexuality. Pumping out greater humanity into the world and greater creativity makes the world for a much better place. I also believe that relationships matter, and my authentic self can build authentic relationships that can weather the storms as you're trying to navigate a delicate campaign or a delicate project through an organization. Smaller than the Coca-Cola Company, bigger than the Coca-Cola Company. That work that you've just seen was dependent on my authentic relationships with many stakeholders across the Coca-Cola system. This is could slightly be provocative, but I actually do always appreciate diverse views. I was 16 years old and I got thrown out of a Jewish household because of the color of my skin. I was 18 years old and a girl finished with me because her father didn't want her to go out with a black guy. I was 22 years old and I left a company because I was frightened of coming out. I now travel all over the world and I meet people in countries where it's actually illegal to be gay. And the people sit down and they're genuinely curious and have opposing views to my own. And I listen to all of those views. But I never accept views that compromise equality. I never accept views. But that doesn't mean to say that I don't listen to those views. I keep my dialogue open, I keep my dialogue curious, and I keep my dialogue inquiring all the time so I can better understand the perspectives that people are bringing when they're challenging some of my values. And I always remain that 6-year-old kid. I have this stubborn sense of optimism and relentless tenacity, even though I want to resign because the pressure of bringing something like that Coca-Cola film to market was just too great. I kept optimistic, and I was relentless in my pursuit of that being brought to the US market. So I've thrown a lot out at you, particularly in that second half, but they are values, and they are beliefs, and they are principles, particularly the open and inquiring mind and the curious mind that I have when people challenge some of the aspects of my own life. And they are values that have served me well. I think they're values that are going to continue to serve me well. Although, to be honest, working for a tech startup in San Francisco, I find myself being the normal guy in the room. So people are like, hey, there's nothing different about you. And I'm like, this feels great. And it's the first time in my career where that's been the case. But they're still values that I'm going to hold dear because I genuinely believe they're values that are going to enable me. And I'd encourage you all to keep thinking about the humanity that you're bringing into the workplace and the creativity that you're bringing into the workplace because you're bringing your full, true self to work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'd just like to do a little round of applause because my partner, who's been my partner for 6 years, is sat here at the table. Mirka, would you just stand up because you make all that true. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes for questions. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, the guy over there in the purple shirt. Hi.
What personal mechanisms did you use to kind of handle the resistance you were facing?
Personal mechanisms that I used to handle the resistance. All but one time, I kind of kept my inner thoughts deep, because I knew if I all but one time it became personal. I couldn't make this personal, because if I made it personal, then I'm sure that would have made the Coca-Cola Company more nervous about running the thing, because is this Jonathan's individual campaign? There was one time that it did become very, very personal, but the whole time I just kept on bringing it back to the business. Coke is drunk by all sorts of diverse communities, and Coke needs to celebrate them all. And so I just kept on bringing it back to the business and suppressing this urge to shout out obscenities back at the people who are being incredibly prejudiced against everything I believe in. Yes? You drink Pepsi?
I don't.
Oh, good, good. Thank you.
But I have a question for you. So you talked about authenticity, which is a really important thing. And oftentimes, I've been in those situations where something you do is in conflict with that. So let me give you a simple example. How do you reconcile your authenticity with the issue of Coke and other soft drinks being blamed by health experts as being contributing to health and other obesity epidemics? How do you reconcile those two things?
Okay, my authenticity is true. I would never drink a gallon of Coke a day, but 8 ounces of Coca-Cola a day has never made anybody fat. And so the 8-ounce Coca-Cola bottle, I think you can have one of those a day and be completely as slim as you'll ever wish to be. So, you know, the abuse of any product would be a bad thing, but I think Coke was originally intended to be drunk in 8 or 12-ounce glass bottles. And I think that 140 calories in a can of Coca-Cola is a kind of reasonable intake when you compare it to other things that you might drink, like that wine that's on your table. Yeah?
You mentioned that the America's Beautiful ad almost cost you your resignation. Some may have found themselves in a similar situation by taking an initial step of courage that put them in a bad situation, and they may have backed down and said, I'm sorry, or tried to step back from that to preserve their careers. Do you have any advice from folks who are in an industry that may be a little less forgiving or a little less interested in marketing, more in terms of a bottom line? Investment banking comes to mind. If they find themselves in a situation where they want to personally invest or take a step in boldness or in courage to be an advocate for something, but it may not be in the short-term interest of a company, any advice towards going for it? Longer term, it's worth it for the company and for society.
You know, I genuinely believe this. The older you get, the clearer your values are in life. And I got to a stage where my values of humanity and creativity were more important than my job. And so therefore I wouldn't compromise those. I don't know if I wouldn't have had the position or the influence 10 years before, and I wouldn't have had the clarity on my values. But I do think that people, all of us, should spend time really, really figuring out what values are really, truly important to us. And then when those values are compromised, how much of our true self is being compromised. And I would never encourage anybody, ever encourage anybody, to stay in a work environment where they genuinely thought their true values were being compromised. Because if you lose sight of those, then you lose sight of self. And I don't know the value of a life when you have lost true sight of self. Yeah?
One of the things I'm curious about is how do we as a society get to a place where instead of caring about what the color of our skin is or what our sexual orientation is, where we all see each other genuinely as human beings, just like that message stated?
Through organizations like this, simply put. Organizations like this, there is an ongoing need to normalize every aspect of society. And these types of organizations are doing just that. They're helping normalize the LGBT community in the workplace. And we'll never stop it. It was really interesting. As we started to put this message out into the public domain, people were like, you know, do we really need to tell America that Black America and White America and Gay America and Straight America should get on with each other? And the answer is yes, and I genuinely believe in 15 years' time the answer is going to be yes. And I genuinely believe in 30 years' time the answer is going to be yes. It will get easier as organizations like this continue to grow and have an impact across all aspects of society. But there'll never be a time that we don't need to remind each other to approach humanity with genuine equality. Well, there's not many ads, particularly on the Super Bowl, that show a gay couple. So Super Bowl, gay couple, Coca-Cola, yeah, we anticipated a bit of a negative backlash. But my purpose was that we use America's biggest marketing platform to tell one of America's most important stories. 9% of the total conversation was negative. I was surprised by that. That wouldn't have been the case in the UK. But I realized that there are still certain very, very conservative communities in the US that were surprised that a mega iconic American brand like that, like Coca-Cola, would actually make that stance. One more question. Yes?
Hi, I'm actually curious about your current position, and I loved your speech, by the way.
Thank you.
So what do you think is your biggest challenge with Airbnb? Is it community engagement? Is it, there's so many things, but I would love to hear.
Here's why I joined Airbnb. I was at Coke for 7.5 years, and I was navigating systems and processes and bureaucracy that was like, 40, 50, 60 years old. Airbnb is growing like a rocket. The size of that organization, the value of that organization, the headcount in the organization, it's trebling year on year on year. We'll have 1,700 employees by the end of the year. And it doesn't have the infrastructures and the systems and the processes. So I joined Airbnb because I get to build it the way that I want it to be designed, the way that a 21st century marketing organization should build 21st century marketing. And that's what Airbnb need from me, because we need systems and frameworks around this huge explosive growth. Now, the creativity, I work for Brian Chesky, one of the most creatively ambitious guys on the planet. So the creativity is just going to come, whereas at Coke, I had to force it. The creativity is going to come from Airbnb, that's a given. But actually, what I'm really excited about is building the sustainable system so that we can continue to enjoy this incredible growth that Airbnb represents. Okay, guys, listen, thank you, and thank you very, very much for your, I really do appreciate it. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Thank you.